Hello, Exiles. This is Ryan from Behind Eyes Gaming, and welcome to another Path of Exile video. In today's video, I'm going to talk about a build idea I have for Path of Exile 3.16. It is coming up here pretty soon, and we have a lot more information than we would normally have this early into the league, or this early before the league rather. So I'm going to go over one of the build ideas I have and kind of talk about how I come up with these build ideas and then go over the build itself. So what I do usually before starting a new league or when a league is coming up is I always have a nice little list of skills that have been buffed in the last couple of patches but still haven't seen a lot of play, or skills that I think were already borderline good but might receive buffs. Usually there's a lot of those. Or skills that were new skills in the previous league but weren't quite up to snuff. They might bring them up to power level a little bit, or there might be a slight change that would change them. And one of the winners, I think, of this league was buffed last league, and that was Soul Rend. Soul Rend is actually quite powerful now. The base damage is very high for very little investment, and I'm going to talk about what kind of brought me to Soul Rend as a skill. So if you don't know, there have been several balance manifestos, 3 of them specifically, that go into great detail on changes that are upcoming. And I want to pull up the second one here. So let's make sure that's pulled up. Okay. And this talks about energy shield. So I want to play an occultist because I think that energy shield is going to be in a really great place in this next league. I think it's going to be much easier to get very high values. One of the things that makes it look like we might not receive very high values is that we are losing the quality crafts from Betrayal Veiled Crafts. So that's going to be like 18% quality, but we're now going to have varied base types that can roll up to 20% higher. Now, the good thing about this and why it makes up for it is because it is the base, it's going to scale the prefix that gives percentage of that defense. So in this case, energy shield, as well as the existing quality, which we can still get up to 30% using like betrayal crafting, that kind of thing. So we're going to be able to scale the base values higher. So I think that'll more than make up. I haven't done the exact math, but I think it will be easier to reach higher values of energy shield. This includes armor and evasion as well, which are also having their formulas changed, and I'll probably do some build ideas that use them as defensive mechanics, probably more specifically armor for a reason that I'll explain at another time. But yeah, currently I think we're looking at occultist as being one of those builds that's in a really good place right now. So we have that going. The second thing is, I'll pull this up here. The second manifesto is was for elemental damage over time specifically. However, we actually have some things in here related to just generic damage over time. So they're adding 5 tiers, or there's 5 tiers of global damage over time modifiers, suffixes that can roll on, or multiplier, that can roll on all weapons up to 26% on one-handed weapons and 45% on others. So they're adding additional tiers of global damage over time. This is going to be really nice. The other interesting thing is Essence of Delirium no longer rolls hexes you inflict have +5 maximum doom on rings, or plus to damage over time multiplier on amulets, and instead it rolls 12 to 15% damage over time multiplier on rings. So we can now use Essences of Delirium to roll damage over time multiplier on rings, and now you'll be able to roll on amulets just regularly damage over time multiplier. This is, which is right here. There are now 5 tiers of global damage over time multiplier suffix modifiers that roll on all amulets as part of their base modifier pool up to 26%. So we're going to be able to get much higher levels of damage over time multiplier than was previously available. And because of a change to occultist that was done a patch or 2 ago, where they changed This node right here, Withering Presence, to instead of giving damage over time multiplier, just strictly gives more chaos damage. Now that we're going to have higher damage over time multiplier readily available to us, it is actually going to be just a lot more damage. In addition to that, we're going to have much higher damage over time multiplier rolls on jewels. It's now going to roll 6 to 8% instead of 3 to 4%, so literally doubling damage over time multiplier that can be gotten on jewels. This is absolutely huge. Every build almost can fit at least a couple of jewel slots, like at least 2 or 3 minimum. I've got a really basic build here where I'm not going out of my way for jewel sockets, and I'm still getting, one's going to have to be taken up by Spreading Rot, but I'm still getting a couple of jewels and can definitely reach out for more jewel sockets there. Plus, there's cluster jewels, which you could easily change the tree to add those, and that'll give you more jewel slots, and you just get out of some of the stuff you don't need, like some of the energy shield. I have way too much percentage energy shield here, whereas I could be using that on cluster jewels instead. So that's really big. So we're getting a whole lot of benefit to both energy shield scaling, which benefits occultist, and damage over time multiplier and chaos damage time over time multiplier, which is going to benefit Soul Rend, which is already buffed. I'm currently using specific values with very basic items, literally just 2 +1 to level of all chaos spell skill gems. I'm using a Chevrons. You don't need Chevrons. It's helpful. We are going to be running this build low life at some point. And another nice thing I want to mention about Chevrons is that one of its downsides is it has pretty low energy shield for a body armor. However, with the variable modifier, because it doesn't have any flat on it, it just has up to 150% increased, and then you can get up to 28 or 30% quality as well. If you get 20% increase onto the base of this occultist's vestment, you can get a much higher value for chevrons, which is really nice. But unnecessary, you don't need it. There's other ways to deal with, you can go low life without it potentially. Jumping through some hoops, it's particularly a bit easier just because you can max your chaos resistance quite easily, because you get 60% chaos resist on Withering Presence, and you get some chaos resist, including a max chaos resist and Method to the Madness. So we could potentially get very high chaos res, and just find a way to regen what little life we do have so we don't die to chaos. So, should be pretty nice there. But yeah, as you can see, I have about 820,000 DPS on Soul Rend in a very simple setup, plus Bane, which will always be up, does an additional about 200,000 as well. And so here's the skill tree. Basically, we would go Void Beacon, Withering Presence, and then probably Vile Bastion after that, because getting stunned when we get into maps will kill us. And then Malediction finally, which will allow us to add an additional curse to Bane. Our skill setup is going to be Soul Rend, GMP, Controlled Destruction, Efficacy, which the reason I pick Efficacy as the 4th slot over Void Manipulation is simply because of the increased skill effect duration, which I think is quite nice because it means at bosses and such we don't have to cast it quite as frequently. I will be getting additional skill effect duration as well. And then Void Manipulation, and finally Swift Affliction. This can also be replaced with Arcane Surge, because you can run a higher level Arcane Surge because of the high mana cost of Soul Rend. Then to apply our curses, we'll do Bane with Despair, and then later on when we get our 4th Ascendancy, or 3rd if you decide, go Temporal Chains as well, which will also increase the duration of Soul Rend, meaning we won't have to cast it as frequently. It'll also increase the duration of Bane and the curses that are on it. So it'll be basically, yeah, super strong, because other effects on cursed enemies expire 40% slower. And then lastly, I put Efficacy to keep things on there, have more duration as well, and add damage. Oh, and I don't even have this level 21. We'll probably get a level 21 Bane, which would put us at 230,000. So as you can see, just with these two guaranteed things on there, we're going to be doing about 1.1 million DPS, and then we'll have Blight Totems as well, which will, at maximum stacks, add an additional 369,000, as well as keep maximum Wither stacks on the enemies, which we will have 15 Wither stacks, and we'll also be adding Wither with Withering Presence as well. So we should stack up quite quickly. We also have the effective Wither, and Withers expire more slowly up through this corruption node as well. So very simple setup as far as we'll get a little bit of it's changing a little bit. It's no longer going to be called reserved or reduced mana reservation. It'll be mana efficiency now, or reservation efficiency, and we can simply get charisma, and they're doubling the values. And for just running 3 auras like we're running Malevolence, Discipline, and Skitterbots. This should be more effective than it currently is, so I should have even more unreserved mana to potentially put something else on there if I so desire, like a very small one. And then on our life, we'll have Skitterbots and Arrogance. And this should be close to 50% with the, but we can play around with it as necessary, which will put us good enough to get Pain Attunement. So very simple setup there. Blight, like I said, just Spell Totem and faster casting. You can throw another damage link if you want to put it on a 4-link, and then Flame Dash, Arcane Surge, faster casting as well. So it's a really simple setup. It does a lot of damage. For leveling up with this build, you would want to probably go, you would pick Blight and Explosive Trap first. So you would spend a Wisdom to get Explosive Trap. You use Explosive Trap for a long time until you get right before Brutus. Then you pick up Spell Totem, and you do Blight, Spell Totem, and Infused Channeling. That you can now drop the Blight Totem on packs and run past them and just use Explosive Trap with like added lightning or whatever into the, and then what's the other skill here? So you would do something like Explosive Trap, which would be low level, and then just like added lightning. It'd be lower level than this. Let's just say these are level 5. And then you would use Swift Assembly for your third one. So your setup for bosses would just be Explosive Trap, added lightning, Swift Assembly. Does quite a lot of damage early on, and you should be able to just wreck everything. But yeah, we'll get rid of that kind of stuff because that's not important. And as far as the skill tree goes, you would go up through the generic spell damage. You would go through life. Obviously, you're not leveling ES. You would head straight over down through the life in the shadow tree here. Go around to damage over time. Grab resourcefulness, lethal assault, cold-hearted calculation. Head up here. Grab growth and decay. Grab this. And by the time you get to atrophy, you should be getting at least Bane and also probably Soul Rend shortly thereafter in Act 3. And then you can pop down, get Method to Madness, swing through the here, grab Cruel Preparation, go over to Corruption, sneak on down here, maybe grab Quick Recovery, get the Potency of Will. And around that time, you should be, and then you can just grab like Melding and maybe some jewel slots from there. You'll definitely want to pick up a jewel slot in order to place Spreading Rot, whether it be here, here, or here. At some point during all of this, probably as soon as you hit Act 6, or Act 5 rather, right around the time towards the end of Act 5 when you actually get Spreading Rot. So yeah, you'll have all of that. And then later on, once you get some good ES gear, you'll want to spec out of all of the life and change your pathing a little bit, go through practical application, and that'll give you all of the stats you need more than likely. Looks like we'll need a little bit more strength, but we can just get that from an amulet, which is no problem or something. Or from anything else, really. And then, you just pick up all the ES. You can keep melding. You can keep written in blood. You could potentially put... pick a jewel here. You could potentially put energy from within into your build and put it down here, which will give quite a bit more ES. That will give you 6 ES flat there, plus you'll get all of the life transformed, so you'll get an additional 9, 12, 15. So yeah, just this will give you a decent amount, like 21% ES, which will be nice, which is worth like 3.5 of these small nodes, just for a jewel socket basically, and since ES is going to be more important anyway, that will be good. There's lots of other stuff you can do late game with this. Once you start getting better wands, you'll want +1 to level of all chaos, and then you'll want like some damage over time multiplier as well. Chaos damage over time multiplier, perhaps. Maybe some regular damage over time multiplier. And then all spell skill gem levels. And this would be what you would look for in like the end game, which would over double your DPS just having these wands. Obviously, these are insanely good wands. Not likely to get them, but try to get as many of the mods as you can. Like maybe you just get a chaos +1 to all chaos spells with chaos damage over time multiplier. That's fine. But once you reach this point, you're doing almost 2 million DPS. And then another 500,000 here, so like 2.5 million sustained, plus your blight, which at maximum stacks is almost 800,000. So yeah, on bosses you'll be doing like 3 million DPS, not including any of the damage over time multiplier you can get on jewels, on rings. Probably push this very high very, very easily, honestly. But yeah, even as a baseline without the fancy wands, we're still pushing over 1 million DPS and a lot of survivability. So that's why I'm picking this for my league starter potentially. This is very high on my priority list. I'm going to bring some other builds, go over them. I'm very excited about some Ignite Elementalist stuff that I think is kind of out of the box thinking that I've been working on for leagues, but I finally have a good reason with the changes to Ignite to run it, and it's also going to be a very heavy hitter, I expect. We'll have to see, but yeah, that's everything. Hope you enjoyed. This has been Ryan from Behind Eyes Gaming, and I will see you next time. Bye.